about how you can bring process and order to your business operations. Marquis, do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself, and we'll go from there?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Brendan, and thanks to the Entrepreneur team and Agency Summit for putting this on and for having me here. So my name is Marquis. I'm the CEO and founder of Ditto. We are a systems improvement consultancy for organizations who need help creating clarity around the work that's done inside of their companies. And for me, my journey really began more out of a necessity and a need for systems within my previous marketing agency, which was called Media Crates. I found that, creating order in all the chaos that can happen within an agency was so needed for me to grow and scale. And as the business grew, I had to obviously bring on more team members. And I found that a lot of my time was getting sidetracked and, brought into actually training those people over and over again, answering a lot of the same questions over and over again, and really taking my time away from the tasks within the business that needed my attention. And so it was through actually needing it for my business that I realized what was actually my true passion, which is operations, and eventually led me to, making a pivot into systems improvement, where Ditto helps companies create and document their standard operating procedures, create process workflows that we're going to talk a lot about today, and then automations to make work easier. This is my family. I have twin boys. They're 6 years old now, and that's my wife. She's an interior designer, and we live up in Canada, up in the Great White North. And when I'm not optimizing workflows, you can find me, honing my skills in photography. I love kayaking. You'll see the bases over my shoulder here. I love playing music or just going out for a walk with my family and my dog Taco, which is not pictured, but you might see him pop up during the presentation. So just a bit about Ditto and where we're really going with this. Why Ditto exists is to put an end to team burnout. I'm going to put some scenarios in front of you in a minute here, but it basically talks about this problem that is plaguing corporations and businesses from small to mid-sized to enterprise, where team members are becoming burnt out. We've all gone through what was just named as the Great Resignation. Team members are burnt out, they're tired, they're quitting because they're seeking more clarity, they're seeking more consistency, and they're seeking more freedom ultimately. And so our mission is really to empower teams so they can focus on the work that they were hired to do without the issue of not knowing where or how that work is happening. And so these are some of the problems that we see in the agency, and you're probably going to be nodding your head as well. If this sounds like you, just give me a thumbs up or something in the chat just so I know. But the fact is that effortless work is getting harder to attain. And so without a system to really manage that work, things are falling through the cracks. We're missing deadlines, and we're missing out on the full potential of our offerings, and affecting customer experience at the same time. So some of these things that are impacting this work is not knowing who is doing what and by when, right? Notifications and meetings that disrupt work and are taking our attention away from those things that we're supposed to be focusing on. And then finding and gathering information or data from different tools, because we have tool overload and we don't have a single source of truth for where our information should be housed. And then we're also prioritizing the wrong type of work within our business as things shift. And some of the compounding, effects of this work about work, which I'll define for you in a minute, is, reduced productivity, right? Worsened customer experience, decreased innovation, burnout, as we've already said, and then challenges attracting and keeping talent, because there is no rhyme or reason, there are no systems, and all of these things are impacting our day-to-day. So we see that there's a productivity gap. Companies are adopting more technology and investing in more collaboration, but productivity lags. The common misconception is that, we just get a new tool, we just buy something new, we get a consultant, we do all of these things, these really tactical things, and we hope that this software will solve all of our problems, when really at the core, there's a process problem. And so that's what we're going to discuss today. Just some stats for you. Everyone loves a good stat, but in 2019, Asana and Michael Mankins at Bain Company did a survey of North American workers, and we found that on an annual basis, this is generally how we're spending our time at work. And so you've probably seen something like this. Again, this is from 2019. Asana just released their 2022 state of work, and we're happy to say that these numbers have improved slightly, not too much, but we are putting a dent in this war against work about work. So we're finding that 13% of our time is spent on actual strategy and planning, the work that we love to do or need to do so we can move the needle forward. 27% of our time is spent on skilled work. This is the work that our clients are hiring us and trusting us to actually do to execute on the deliverables that we are promising we are going to provide to them. And then the last number, which again, this is a very big number, 60% of our time is spent on this work about work, which I am getting to. And so I mentioned that Asana recently released their 2022 version of the state of work. This number has gone from 60% down to 58%. So we are making progress, which is really nice as we're becoming more efficient and introducing more systems. But this is what things can look like as well, right? This is another few stats on just what happens hourly or annually for the work that we're doing. So we're spending about 167 hours in meetings. We are spending about 352 hours talking about work. So maybe on calls talking about the work that has to get done. 209 hours on duplicate work because one team or one individual doesn't know what the other person is working on. And then 103 hours annually in unnecessary meetings. And so if you're looking at this and you're nodding your head a little bit, then you are not alone, because this is what we are seeing mostly in agencies and corporations across North America and parts of Europe. And so just to better define for you what work about work is, it is a noun. It was coined by Asana, but it's the activities that take away from the meaningful skilled work. And so this can include communicating about work, searching for information, switching between apps, managing shifting priorities, and chasing the status of work. Other things that can contribute to this are trying to monitor the status or get an update on something or find files or understand who is actually doing what. And all this stuff is keeping us from actually doing our real, true skilled work. So we're going to cover three things today. There's so much we can talk about when it comes to processes and system improvement, but we're going to discuss what process documentation looks like. We're going to discuss time and capacity management, and we're also going to discuss process improvement and what that looks like within your business. And so the first one, process documentation, how we do things around here. Something that I will often think to myself and say to my team is, am I the only person who knows this information, and would others benefit from having this information? Right? Am I the only person who knows this, and would others benefit? 99% of the time, I'm even willing to bet 100% of the time, the answer is a resounding yes. Others would benefit. The problem we see is that a lot of these leaders in business, they keep all this information to themselves. We call it institutional knowledge. And simply put, if you're not documenting how you are working, if you're not making that a best practice in your business, you're setting yourself up to fail because you're keeping all that information to yourself. Usually when I talk about this, people will tend to think of the get hit by a bus scenario. I don't like to talk about that because it's pretty morbid, but we like to think about it on the plus side. If you as the leader in the organization needed to take some time off, wanted to go on vacation, needed to take a week to recuperate, maybe you have reached burnout, what's going to happen to your business? Are things going to fall apart? Are you going to be trying to relax on a beach and getting phone calls and emails and getting pulled in to put fires out? That's why this is all so important, and not leaving all this information to just one person. So I want to look at what the difference is between processes versus standard operating procedures. So really simply put, standard operating procedures are detail-oriented. They're in a step-by-step format, typically written out in a list format. And this really helps us to ensure consistency within our training, maintain, compliance standards, and have a written document outlining these steps. And then there's our process maps or flow charts, whatever you want to call them. But this really gives us our high level walkthrough of the process or the need. And so it's more of a visual format of the workflow. It's kind of like a turn by turn. And I'm going to show you something in a minute, which will help you better to understand this. But it's also a sequence of movements or actions. And then it gives us a visual turn by turn diagram. So gonna leave this up on the screen for like 5 seconds here, but who remembers this? Right? I remember, getting ready on a Friday night to go out somewhere as a teenager, and you would go to mapquest.com, print out your directions, and in the most unsafe way possible, we are driving our vehicles and we are looking at these 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper. So that's how we can think of these process maps. They are giving us a really high level overview, and it's usually used to break down these very complex scenarios into really easy to follow steps so that anyone that's reading them can get a general understanding. What I have on this screen here is 2 examples of a process map and then a standard operating procedure. The one that we have chosen for this example today to really keep it simple is you need to get in your car and drive to your friend's house. So again, back in the day, we'd go on MapQuest, we'd print out the directions. And so this is what it could look like. So at the high level, we have, get in your car. Next step, turn the car on. Then we want to check our surroundings and is the way clear? If it is not clear, right, we are going to wait for oncoming traffic or wait for an opening in traffic. If the way is clear, we're going to drive to our friend's house, and then we're going to conclude this process by arriving at our destination. Right? You'll notice that there's no information in here around street signs or how long or how far or what side of the street the friend's house is on. It really gives us just a high level overview. Versus the standard operating procedure, where it's more, of a process where it gives you the full step-by-steps, it's filling in those gaps, and it's providing more detailed information. So now instead of just that visual, we have the purpose of this document. So we've given it a title, how to drive to your friend's house. The purpose is to get a ride to a party at your friend's house. Ensure you've given yourself at least 30 minutes before the party at the friend's house begins. After all, you were tasked in bringing the chips, and everyone knows the party can't get started without the chips and dip. So it's really giving us a really good understanding of why this process is needed. And then it has some just some reminders here. So things that you need to bring, or resources that you'll need to complete that process or task. So you obviously need the chips, you need your jacket, it might get cold, your favorite CDs in your CD wallet, and a cool outfit, of course. You'll also need your parents' permission, and you'll need a car to drive there. So it's really setting you up for success, giving you all the different things that you'll need to successfully complete this process. And then it's listing out everything we need to do. I'm not going to read them off for you, but we can elaborate on this list, and it can be so much longer, but it's giving you everything step by step so that everyone knows exactly what's going on and when they need to take that action. So I'm going to talk through some of the benefits of process documentation. And here's our friend Buddy from ALF, who's so excited about training. Training is his favorite, but realistically, training is one of those things that it does take so much time. And if we don't have the proper documentation or the proper system set up when we are training our team, when we are onboarding our team or onboarding our clients, the reality is that we are going to be spending our time, and it's going to be taken away from all those areas that really need us in the business. So one of the biggest benefits of SOPs is they allow you to create a schedule that is predictable and consistent that anyone can follow. So a really common example is your company is experiencing growth and you need to hire, right? You currently have 5 staff members. All of them have been with the company for varied lengths of time, but you have close to 15 years between all of your team. Your most senior employee has seen the company change the most and has most likely had to figure out a lot of the job on their own. Sound familiar? Depending on the capacity at the time, you may have not have spent a lot of your time training that individual because you're kind of moving, really fast and trying to get through a lot of these things. And so we're all busy. We're all just trying to do the best that we can. So what happens? We have to bring on these new team members. You're busy. Your more senior people are busy. And the last thing that you want is for your new person to come in and figure it out on their own or work with someone who has been with the company for a long time and who will bring in, their bad habits and allow those to rub off on the new employee, right? We're working towards change and improvement. We don't want to risk that. But the question is, who is going to train these people? Who really has the time? And the question is that unless you have a dedicated individual in that role, this will often fall on the leaders of the business, and we cannot afford that, as we know. Give me a little thumbs up if any of this is resonating for you in the chat. We're going to talk about some more benefits here. So some of the benefits of process documentation. We have team alignment. And so SOPs assure, that there's a level of organization that everyone's following. We've improved clarity around the work within the business, and we're helping to reduce that work about work. What we also see is increased team engagement, right? There's less stress on the team. People aren't frustrated. They're not getting burnt out. They're not wondering what's going on. They have a clear indicator of what's required of them and where they come in that process as well. And you can align your outputs, right? So you're creating an internal baseline for how you can expect your team to carry out those tasks. And then as the leaders, we have more time for creativity and ideation because we're not reinventing the wheel, because we're not spending our time, repeating things over and over again. We can spend more of our time on that skilled work and strategy that our businesses need us to. So here's what this looks like at a really high level. I'm going to show you lots of examples. Always want to start by writing it down. Another way you can look at this is to draw it out, right? I have chosen, and at Ditto, we actually house all of our SOPs inside of Asana because we believe that the work, the people, the resources, and the tools required to do the work should all happen in the same place. And so whether you're drawing it out on a piece of paper or you're putting it in Google Docs or, Wrike, it doesn't really matter. You just want to start by writing it down. Write down everything that you do. Write down everything that you would need to document so that you can start to gain some of that time back. The common roadblock is often ourselves, right? We feel like we don't have the time to stop and document, the what and the how of what we do. We always fall into this trap where, we can do it better, we can do it faster ourselves. And, if you're looking for a recipe to fail, then this is a perfect way to do that for you. So what I have depicted here is with our SOPs, we always have a visual. We have both images, but we have a video walkthrough, and we use Loom to do that. We have the purpose of that process or task, and then we have the resources you'll need, some of the notes just to bring you up to speed, and then we have our step-by-step procedure that we follow. Next is to record it. Right, so I mentioned Loom there quickly. With every one of our standard operating procedures, we have a video accompaniment. So I would start there because oftentimes it can be intimidating. You're not sure where to start, what to write down, but this gives both you, the instructor, and the learner, who may be more of a visual learner, just a better way to consume the information. And providing these video walkthroughs can help people on both sides. And so it can really be as simple as going to loom.com, turning on your share screen, and just walking through how you do what you do. It could be how you process payroll. It could be how you do reconciliation. It could be how you do your sales. It could be how you engage in recruiting. It could be how you do your social media posts. Whatever it is, if it's on the computer, there's a really good chance that you can visually record it for the next person. And then what we often want to look at is plotting it out. So what I have here is a diagram that I extracted from Lucid Chart, which is what we use for our process documentation, but there's lots of others. You can use Miro. Process Street is a great one as well. There are many, many tools. This is the one that we've chosen. And so what this is showing you, and I'm going to show you a couple examples here, is what it can look like from a visual perspective, where you can see the different swim lanes and the people that are responsible and how all the tasks interact with each other. So you always want to think of, the auditory, visual, reading, writing, or kinesthetic learner when creating these different SOPs. Having those different forms of media can make it easier to establish consistency and make sure that there is better adoption as well across the board. So this is the same process. So what we did here is this is our visual workflow. We've taken all that information and we put it into a standard operating procedure. And this is typically where we'll start. As a team, you want to gather the people and just draw it out. Again, this can be on paper or any kind of whiteboarding software you want to, but just get together with your team, plan this out, start to draw it, and then we can take away the necessary steps and elaborate on each of those turn-by-turn points within our diagram. So just a little bit more here. I kind of zoomed in on some of it. You can see that, there are 4 people involved in this process. There's the host. And this is how, I run my podcast. I have a podcast called In Systems We Trust. And this is how I run the podcast. So me, the host, I would need to host the interview, obviously. And before that, there's an automated sequence where I send out my Calendly link, and everything else happens on an automated basis. Everything from their talent release agreement, to them submitting their information, to them booking a time, to it getting into our production schedule, and then sending out reminders as we go as well. It's all taken care of through automation. And you can see that once the episode is finished recording, all I have to do is name the episode and then put it into Asana, into the files ready section, which I'll show you in a minute here. And then everything else gets automated and assigned out to different team members. So if we flip to Asana, this is what it can look like. This is our work management tool. Any new submissions come into the on deck section. When I'm finished recording the podcast episode, I move it to files ready, which triggers workflows for our media assistant to come in, gather the files, start editing, and then move it into post-production, and then eventually quality control. This is what it can look like behind the scenes of your work management tool. And you can build these workflows out really simply through step-by-step examples, or we can get really granular and complex with this as well. So this shows all the stages and all the steps and all the automations that trigger behind the scenes to keep this process flowing. And what's nice, we're all agencies here today. What's nice is we can repurpose this content as well. So I showed you what the loom looks like. I showed you what the workflow looks like. I showed you what the standard operating procedure looks like. And this is how we repurpose this type of content. So I was able to actually put together a YouTube video for my channel, which talked about what this automated workflow looks like for my podcast. And people view it and they ask questions, and they adapt it and they've asked for the template. And so there's opportunities there. And on the subject of content, we're able to repurpose it into a blog as well to show visually and written to others that were curious what this process looked like. So beyond just improving how things happen internally, there are many different use cases for process documentation. Let's keep it moving here. So section 1, complete. Congrats. Some key takeaways here. So what we really covered was, if the leaders are making all the decisions, the system's broken. We have to use our team. We have to bring people in to aid us. The goal should be to enable our teams to play a more active role, right? We want to choose the visualization format that makes sense for our companies. You can have multiple, you can have one, just as long as we all agree how we're going to do it. That's all that really matters. And then lastly, we want to define what the purpose of the proposed outcome is of the new standard operating procedure as well. All right, let's take a look at capacity, time and capacity management. All right, so where has the time gone? That is often the big question. We all have the same amount of time in our week, in our day. We're all super busy, right? But all of us spend our time very, very differently. But the question that I want you to think about today is, do you know where your time is going? Do you know how much time you spend in email every week? Do you know how much time you get sidetracked and go off into social media land? Do you know how much time you're spending in sales and revenue generating tasks? Do you know how much time you're spending putting out fires? We often will not even think about those things, and there are a lot of hidden costs and expenses that are being lost or identified through this process improvement as well. So just Parkinson's law, I'm sure all very familiar with this, but work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion, right? Everything always takes as long as the time that we give to it, right? If we have 5 minutes to do a task, or if a task, takes 5 minutes, but we're given a week to do it, 9 times out of 10, we're going to wait till that final 5 minutes to do it. And so what I want to talk about in this section is some time management best practices and how we can get a better understanding of exactly where our time is going. And so let's take a look here at some more stats. I love stats. And so I want you to think if any of this sounds familiar to you, but only 17% of people are actively tracking their time. This is from a Tech3 survey from 2021. Okay. Multitasking without time tracking decreases productivity by 45%. I know we all probably think we're incredible multitaskers, but you're not being as efficient or effective as you really think. And then the last stat here is 43% of hourly workers admit to committing time theft. Now, what is time theft? I mean, it sounds very, very serious, but in this new remote landscape, it can happen anytime, all the time, right? So this is really performing any personal activities during work hours. And I know we're a bit more lenient on work hours these days with everyone being remote. So you'll have to figure out what this looks like in your organization. But taking many breaks or leisure time when you should be working, or when you are working, or your timer is going and your team thinks you're working, but you're out for a walk, right? Making personal calls, for whatever reason, preparing food, getting another snack, going outside. There's definitely a balance there, but a lot of our time is going towards these things, and either we forget to turn off our timers or whatever it may be. We're not allotting for this time away from the actual work as well. And so there's a cost. There's a cost to not tracking our time. So for the leaders, we're recording inaccurate billable hours. We're missing things that we should be charging to our clients because we're not getting the full scope. Our project timelines are becoming extended. We're missing deadlines, right? We have inaccurate project reporting or no reporting at all because we don't have that data. And then there's a lack of visibility into profit margins. How much are we actually spending on this project? How much are we making? How impactful are we being? And are we growing sideways as a business, or are we scaling vertically, which is obviously the better way that we want to go. So, and of course, we all love Mr. Michael Scott. I don't think he actually said this, but it's a funny meme anyway. So some benefits of time tracking. I'm going to run you through a few of them here. Um, the first one is making data-driven decisions, right? We no longer have to guess when it comes to estimates or making hiring decisions or increasing budgets or approving overtime. We have data that shows us exactly what we're able to do and what we're not able to do because we're tracking all that information. So employee data from a time tracking perspective can help us make these more informed decisions and ultimately eliminate low return on our investment, right? Great for a better understanding of how you and your team manage the time, and then enable you to reassign or delegate work so that the low ROI tasks, so the non-revenue generating tasks, are assigned to the appropriate team members. We're going to talk more about delegation because I know that that is a sore spot for a lot of leaders today. Number two is monitoring project cost. So when we track our time, we can determine how much time every project lifecycle stage takes to complete. And with this information, we can better make estimates for future projects. So basically having these historical numbers and data helps us to better plan for the future when it comes to assigning resources to a project. It allows us to let our customers know when we can start and profitably finish a project as well. And it allows us to see the capacity of our team members to know who's available, who is not available, and everything in between. So it really allows for more time spent, monitoring hours and budgets because it's there. We have that information. And then we're properly assigning those resources. And in many cases, it helps to integrate our time tracking system in with our payroll and our bookkeeping so that everything is on the same page. We can see a boost in profitability as well. So with time tracking, we can see the amount of time a project takes from start to finish, and we can ensure that the team's capacity is being utilized and applied in the right areas. Again, we can make those on-the-fly decisions. We can look at historical data, and we can identify any potential bottlenecks that may come up. And the last one here is revealing those hidden tasks or hidden costs. So hidden tasks are daily tasks that take up a considerable amount of time, but aren't directly related to the project, right? So we can see that, these are things that if we can remove them and identify them and better understand what these tasks look like, we can ultimately help to prevent burnout and workload fluctuations. So what does that look like practically, right? This is a screenshot from our work management tool, Asana, where it allows us to get a really good understanding of everyone's capacity and workload within Asana. So we're able to set that capacity based on their hours availability for that week or that month, right? And then we are assigning, in many cases, a unit of measurement. We call it effort, so that we can actually see what's happening. So effort can be broken down into, estimated hours, points, if you have a scoring system, right? Those are a few different examples of how we can actually assign time to specific tasks that are assigned to our team members so that we can see at a high level where their time is being spent, who is overloaded, who is underworked, and who is headed towards burnout, and make on the fly decisions to alleviate those risks. So again, we can understand, who's at capacity, who's underutilized, and everything in between. Here's just some examples of some software. We happen to use Harvest. We have used EverHour, but we implement all of these and more for our customers. But Harvest is by far our favorite tool because it gives you real-time utilization within your organization across projects. It allows you to track budgets, receive alerts when your budgets get to a certain percentage, and break down the different phases. It allows for really streamlined reporting, invoicing, and then it connects to your accounting systems as well. So we use QBO, and so this connects right into that. We can do all of our time tracking for all of our billables. We can invoice our customers through here. We sync it to our QuickBooks, which syncs to our financial dashboards. So we're able to maintain and monitor all the pertinent information around project capacity and utilization as well. Going to switch gears a little bit because a lot of what we're talking about has to do with the team, and the goal is to bring the team together and standardize a lot of these things. But a lot of the times it starts with the leaders. And so we talked about delegation before and how a lot of us don't like to do that because we feel like we can do it better, or we can do it faster, or at one point we were the only person doing it and no one else is as good as good at it as we are. And so this is a framework that I follow. It's not something that I created, but it's a 4D time management framework where you section off your work into 4 quadrants. You have your do, which is to simply, act on things. These are things that don't take you a long time or are revenue generating, that need your attention, that need to happen, that are both urgent and important. And then you have your defer. These are things that you can schedule for later, right? They're important, but they're not urgent, right? You got an email that came in, someone needs something from you by the end of the week. You can put it into defer and you can push it off for a later date. Then we have our delegate column. So this is not important, but urgent. We don't have the time to do it ourselves, or it's not something we need to be spending our time on. We pass that off to another team member. And this is the best thing that if you're not doing it right now, you as a leader or an owner of an agency can do to get your time and your freedom back. But the question is, how do you do that, right? We feel like only we can do this thing. We can do it better. We can do it faster. But that's the lie we tell ourselves. And if you keep believing it, you're going to stay stuck in the same spot. And then the last one is delete. So these are tasks that are not urgent and are not important. Someone comes into your email or passes by your desk, whether it be physical or virtual, and wants you to do something. It's not important to your key responsibilities. So it allows you to make the decision. Is this something I need to do, delegate, or is this just not important at all and you delete it? One of my favorite things to do is going through my email and just deleting things without even opening them. Just get them out of my view, get the tasks that don't need my attention out of my view, remove them, give them to someone else, or defer them to a later date. Just a fun meme I put out a few weeks ago. This is your team. They're offering help and support. They want to be there to support you. And we as business owners just disregard their help, right? We don't do it intentionally. We don't do it maniacally, but we do it because we don't trust our people. And the fact is that we've hired them for their talent and their fit with the organization. But to better establish the trust and relationship, we need to give them the opportunities to showcase those talents, because the truth is that they want to help. We just need to give them those opportunities to do so. So stop saying no, stop saying I got this, stop jumping in. I still deal with this. I'm not perfect with it. There's times where, someone is offering help, and because I'm so busy, I have so many things going on, I think, do I have the time right now to delegate or explain this? No, I'll just do it myself, right? Because we feel like it would take less time. But off the top of the presentation, we talked about those compounding effects of this work about work. This is one of them. We keep saying, no, it's okay, I got it. I'm good. And we're finding ourselves staying up till 3 o'clock in the morning, working on the weekends, working evenings, and not advancing in our business. This is an example of what it looks like within my Asana. And so this is my tasks, where I would come first in the day to see everything that I need to do. I've closed up my today tasks for you here, but I've broken down those 4 quadrants that we discussed into different sections in my tasks. So anything that I need to do that is required of me kind of sits in this spot right here. And then anything that is important but not urgent in my defer sits right in here. And then we have our delegate and our delete. And so by using these tasks and custom fields, as these due dates come up, we have some automation set that move them into my today view. And with these visual indicators, I can now see what are the things that need my immediate immediate attention, excuse me, and where should I be spending my time first. And so you wake up, you open up your Asana inbox or your My Task view, and you're taking a look and you're saying, this is where I'm going to start my day. And there's no question about where your attention is needed either. So let's look at some key takeaways. So we're going to move into process improvement. But before we get there, I want to look at some key takeaways. So time tracking, as we know, is essential to gaining visibility into our profitability. This is not the thing that you roll out to your company that allows you to, see where your team's time is going for the sake of it, right? We're not spying on anybody. We're not doing audits to understand if they're working or if they're not. That's not what this is about. When we roll this out, when we communicate it, we need to roll it out to our teams and communicate that it's for reasons of maintaining standards within the business, to better resource manage in the future, and to essentially grow our business vertically instead of horizontally. We want to make decisions based on data and historical information. We want to make sure that we're monitoring our project expenses and our time against those projects as well. And then creating a framework for prioritizing our tasks. Because as leaders, there's so much that comes across our desk and there's so much that doesn't need to be there. So if we can set up some kind of framework, the 4D is a great one. I would suggest go looking at that. If we can do that, we can see our time coming back and you'll reap those dividends time and time again. That I promise you. All right, we're on to our last section here. Move in quick. We're picking it up. If you have any questions, please just throw them in the chat. But we want to talk about the way that we actually improve our processes, right? So this is where we're headed. We're thinking towards the future, right? And so there's another quote here for you. The biggest room in the world is the room for improvement. The biggest room in the world is the room for improvement, right? I strongly believe that we should always be improving, right? This can be applied in any context within both our personal lives and our businesses, right? So I always like to think of this acronym, MCI, measurable, constant, improvement. And constant is the key there. We shouldn't just be changing and improving and jumping from tool to tool for the sake of it, but there needs to be a reason and a business case for making those improvements as well. So let's look at some of the how-to here, right? I want to point out we don't want to overcomplicate this. So we want to start by analyzing our current state of operations. We call it the as is. Right? We want to use our team to review any past lessons learned from other projects to think of potential improvements that can be made. We want to begin to develop our future state or the to be, right? And we want to resource as much as we can or as much as we're comfortable with different process mapping software that can make the process of creating diagrams, more straightforward. But there are lots of differences between how we go about this, but the point is that by doing this, we can gain a solid understanding of how things are currently functioning so that we can improve as we go forward. Oh, don't know how Michael got back in there. But we're going to take a look at this picture and just pause here for a second. I'm going to wait 10 seconds. I'll let you soak it in. So the reason I pulled up this picture, I just found it so interesting because when we look at process improvement, the common things that I'm coming up across, or the common denominators across businesses that we chat with at Ditto, is they are doing things how they've always done them. And so though it may not look like it, the car on the left here at one point in time was the best in its class, right? Think about that for a minute. Engineers spent hours over the course of several years perfecting the frame, the onboard electronics, mileage and fuel efficiency, and released what was at the time an award-winning vehicle. But the sad state is that a lot of our businesses are this car on the left. right? It's tried, it's true as far as our processes goes, and it was great for a time, but the truth is that it was never meant to last. And so what we see is that due to the elements, right, inevitable part recalls, advancing technology, more cost-effective materials, and a gambit of other factors, this VW Jetta needed to be improved upon, right? So the question is, can we still drive the car on the left today? Yeah, sure. Is it the most safe, fuel efficient, or technologically advanced version of it? No, it's not, right? We know that improvements are necessary to help us advance. And so that's something that I do want to point out and just get in our heads. Just another quote here for you is, just because it's the way you've always done it, it doesn't mean it's the right way. Don't get stuck in the trap of continuing to do things because that's how it's always been done, right? We have to know and think, that we did the best we could at the time with the knowledge we had, but it was not meant to be that way forever. So as we're coming close to the end here, I want to show you, what as is process implementation or analysis can look like. And so we want to start by really studying our current state of the business. The great way for businesses to track, measure, and optimize processes in order to improve performance, efficiency, and results across the board. This helps us to ultimately save money by reducing overhead, by removing things that don't need to be there. It increases productivity and operating efficiency, increases customer experience and happiness as well, helps to coordinate and respond to changes in the business, and then helps in the case that there is a merger or an acquisition that we're going through to really standardize how things are happening. If we take a look at our current versus future state and we do some analysis, right? The bottom line here is that you cannot improve on what you do not understand. I can say that again. You cannot improve what you do not understand. It's important to remember that process improvement initiatives always take place in the context of an as-is process. And if we're not taking the time to look and understand what we're doing now, what the roadblocks are, what the potential risks are, what feedback we receive from our team and our customers, if we're not looking at all that information and we're just turning a blind eye, we are that car on the left. We're still chugging along, but we're not as efficient, we're not as effective as we really could be if we took a real good look at how things were working and worked to improve them. So some of the benefits of really analyzing, our as-is processes is laying a firm foundation first and foremost, right? It allows us to align the operations of the business with our business strategy, right? So where's the business going? We just released our 2025 Vivid Vision. We have a lot of BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. And what's nice is that we have these goals and we have the projects and the processes that work up to those things so that we can actually one day realize those goals. So it's important that there's alignment there. This allows us to improve our training and change management within the organization. We can improve operational efficiency. We can see increased consistency across the company, and we can also gain a competitive advantage because we have better insights on what our customers are looking for, and we can see what historicals we can learn from to better our processes based on customer feedback as well. So as we're looking at performing this analysis, the first step is always doing the research, right? What we really want to do here is just make a note of each process as it begins and as it finishes, as well as which teams or individuals are involved or responsible for those stages in the process. And so, at Ditto or internally, this can look like personal interviews with your team. Ask them what's working, what's not, what they want to see. Review your current company documentation. Audit your processes. Get on a team call and take a look at what your social media campaign workflow looks like, how you are managing your content calendar, how you are doing your client onboarding, how you actually build your website and involve the different people there, how you run an SEO campaign. Look and see how those things are working right now. You can survey your internal team, do group meetings, and then the next step is to document. So we want to identify the options for process improvements based on our analysis, right? This helps us to aid in communication of those processes and changes to the process participants, right? This serves as a training resource for our employees and SMEs, right? And these process outputs should include only the critical processes related to the information that can be acted on, right? So once we've gathered all this information, we can see what the roadblocks are. We can see what the potential risks are. We can use tools to help us do that, right? But this is, again, what I was saying earlier, drawing it out and visualizing it so that you can document what's happening, what's working, and what's not. And then lastly here, identifying gaps, bottlenecks, and weaknesses. So simply put, before we can create that future state diagram, we want to make sure that we've evaluated everything that we have researched and reviewed. So those bottlenecks, reviewing the process for any potential shortcomings, looking at gaps, examining the processes for any areas that might prevent you from achieving your intended performance or results. And then weaknesses. My encouragement here is to not overlook your flaws. Use them to move the needle on your processes. So our key takeaways here from this, final section here is have a direction and well-defined rules for any results that you are expecting to see in your process improvement plan. Utilize your team. Leadership shouldn't be the only ones involved in creating and updating the systems within your business. Again, if that's the case, the system is broken or it's about to fall apart. Number 3 is choose a visualization format that makes sense for your team. And just as a quick nod here, we should be thinking to review our SOPs and our processes every 6 to 12 months as a team. If you can do them quarterly, even better. And so in conclusion here, the bottom line is don't do nothing. Don't do nothing. You should be improving, you should be changing, you should be auditing. Process improvement will have a significant impact on the growth and profitability of your business. And the biggest factor causing these challenges is a lack of policies, procedures, systems, and infrastructure. Without the appropriate systems in place, it's just a matter of time before the cracks get bigger and bigger and threaten the long-term profitability of your overall business and its survival. And then all in all, again, don't do nothing. Process improvement is ongoing and ever changing. The sooner we can embrace the fact that change is really our only constant is the sooner that we can realize a lot of these changes in our business and see it grow in the right ways. And then last, I'll leave you with this. Implement, test, and iterate. Your process will continue to improve over time. I want to thank you for coming to the talk today. If you do have any other questions, would love to hear from you. Here's my contact information. You can visit thinkditto.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and then you can email me if you have any questions as well. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Marquis. That was fantastic. We do just have a quick question if you want to stick around for a couple minutes.
Sure.
Awesome. All right. So this one's from Laura G. She says that she wants to automate things, but she doesn't know where to start. It seems very complicated. What are some entry-level automations that she could do to get a feel for how to do that operational automation that she talked about?
Yeah, good question, Laura. What I would recommend, it definitely depends on the work management tool that you're using. If you're in Asana or ClickUp, there are a lot of standard automations that they recommend. I use them in my tasks to prioritize and move tasks through my sections as the date comes up. But Zapier is another tool. If you're using something like Gmail, they have a great Zap where you can press the star in Gmail, and then that sends it to a specific project or place inside of Asana where you can look at it later. Rather than keeping folders and action items in your inbox, you can move it to a work management tool or to a task management list just to better see what you have to do. And as far as where to start with what you do. How do you do your job? What is required for you? What does Monday look like? What's different on Thursday? How are you delivering all the different things that are required of you on a monthly basis? List them out on a piece of paper, draw them out, and then start to think about what they can look like. And the thing I'll leave you with is don't jump to automation thinking that alone will fix it. Oftentimes we have to struggle and go the manual route first, test it, prove the concept before we even know what to automate. So hope that helps.
Yeah, that was a great answer. Honestly, I've been using Zapier for years, that Gmail tip. So pro.
Yeah,
Star it and
so
have it
good.
sent off to a task list somewhere. I love that.
That's it.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much, Marquis. We really appreciate you being here. Everybody else, thank you for tuning in. We do have a lunch break coming up, so we will see you in about an hour at 12:15 Pacific for Dev, and he's going to tell us about the 9 systems every agency needs to grow and scale. Hope to see you there. See you next